Welcome to Key Tech. Please describe this channel if you are interested in today's video. Looking back at the time when the United States just imposed chip sanctions on China, the import and export data of China's chip industry showed a clear trade deficit. At that time, China's chip exports were $101.5 billion and imports were as high as $305.5 billion. Relying on its own advantages in chip technology and industrial chain, the United States attempted to curb the development of China's chip industry in one fell swoop through sanctions and consolidate its dominant position in the global chip field. However, 4 years have passed and the data has undergone an amazing reversal. 4 years after the sanctions, China's chip exports soared to $159.5 billion and imports also increased to $385 billion. Such data changes are undoubtedly a powerful response to the US sanctions policy. The United States originally expected to stagnate China's chip industry by restricting technology supply and high-end equipment exports, but it did not expect that this move not only failed to achieve expectations, but also became a booster for the rapid development of China's chip industry to a certain extent. In 2019, the United States officially opened the curtain of comprehensive technical blockade and sanctions on China's semiconductor industry. The US government thinks that it can easily control the situation with its advantages in chip technology research and development, production equipment manufacturing and global industrial chain layout. They cut off the supply of advanced technology to China and strictly restricted the export of high-end chip manufacturing equipment, trying to cut off the lifeline of China's chip industry from the source. The US's wishful thinking is that in this way, China will be forced to rely on imports in the chip field for a long time, unable to achieve independent technological breakthroughs, and thus always be at a disadvantage in the competition of the global chip industry. They firmly believe that as long as they maintain their monopoly position in high-end chip technology, they can win this technology game. Faced with the heavy pressure of US sanctions, China's chip industry has not been defeated, but has shown tenacious resilience and vigorous vitality. Domestic enterprises and scientific research institutions have deeply realized that core technology cannot be bought or borrowed, and the only way to achieve industrial breakthroughs is to unswervingly follow the path of independent innovation. At the national level, a series of policies to support the development of the chip industry have been introduced, providing a solid policy guarantee for industrial development. At the same time, huge amounts of funds have been continuously invested in the field of chip research and development, providing sufficient material basis for the development of scientific research. A large number of scientific researchers have devoted themselves to the arduous cause of chip research and development with full enthusiasm and sense of mission. Starting from the chip design stage, China's scientific research team has been constantly overcoming difficulties. They have deeply studied advanced design concepts and algorithms, and strive to achieve breakthroughs in chip architecture and functional design. In terms of manufacturing technology, scientific researchers are committed to improving the process accuracy of chips, and gradually narrowing the gap with the international advanced level by continuously optimizing production processes and technical parameters. In the packaging and testing stage, a series of innovative results have also been achieved, which have improved the performance, stability, and reliability of chips. Not only that, enterprises have closely cooperated with universities and research institutes to form an innovative model of integration of industry, academia, and research. This model has greatly accelerated the transformation of scientific research results into actual productivity. The cutting-edge research results of universities and research institutes can be quickly applied and verified on the production lines of enterprises, and the actual problems encountered by enterprises in the production process can provide new research directions for scientific research. It is through this unremitting effort of the whole country that China's chip industry has achieved a breakthrough in many difficulties, with continuous growth in exports and breakthroughs in production technology. This chain reaction fully exposes the short-sightedness and selfishness of the US chip ban. In order to achieve its own political and economic goals, the US government has sacrificed the interests of US and Western companies and disrupted the normal operation of the global industrial chain. This behavior of harming others and not benefiting oneself has not only damaged the interests of companies in other countries, but also caused serious backlash to the US's own industrial ecology. As for the Netherlands, although it was the most seriously affected in this storm, due to various political factors, it had to obey the instructions of the United States and fell into a helpless dilemma. As China's chip industry continues to grow and develop under sanctions, the failure of the US chip ban has gradually become an indisputable fact. In this case, the Netherlands, which has always been subject to the United States, took the lead in making changes. The Netherlands suddenly announced the lifting of export controls on high-end lithography machines to China, allowing ASML to export lithography machines to China and hide sales information in China. This move is undoubtedly a side confirmation of the failure of the US sanctions policy. On the one hand, the Netherlands made this decision out of consideration for its own economic interests. After all, the Chinese market is of great significance to ASML and the entire Dutch chip industry. On the other hand, it also shows that the United States has lost its absolute control over its allies on the issue of chip sanctions. The US Department of Commerce chose to remain silent in the face of the Netherlands' betrayal and the fact that China's chip industry is booming. The United States, which once shouted the loudest and had the toughest attitude when sanctioning Chinese chips, is now speechless in the face of facts. This silence reflects the helplessness of the United States in the face of the embarrassing situation of failed sanctions. As the strongest country in the world, the policies formulated by the United States not only failed to achieve the expected results, but also promoted the growth of its opponents, which put the United States in an extremely embarrassing situation on the international stage. In this case, not speaking seems to be their last dignity. The prospects for China's chip industry are bright. Based on China's continuous investment, innovation and phase results in the chip field, it is expected that in 3 years, China's chip production level will be comparable to that of TSMC. This is not blind optimism, but has a solid realistic basis. In the low-end and mid-end chip market, China has occupied a certain market share by virtue of its cost advantage and technological accumulation, and is constantly consolidating and expanding this advantage. With the continuous advancement of technology, Chinese chip companies have gradually gained recognition in the international market for product performance and quality. In the field of high-end chips, China is increasing its R&D efforts and gradually overcoming technical difficulties. Through continuous technological innovation and talent training, China is expected to break the long-standing monopoly of foreign countries in the next few years. Chinese chip companies will contribute Chinese strength to global scientific and technological progress with better products and technologies, and promote the global chip industry to develop in a more fair and healthy direction.